I want to go backstage, Johnny Rotten. Johnny was the target of a joke where we all pissed in his beer. Then the beer was given to Johnny Rotten by Johnny Ramone. The musician Joey Ramone didn't look like a star. He stood on stage like he was lost in the crowd. He was almost 2 meters tall, and his long hair covered his face. Still, every time he spoke, the whole punk world cheered with him. It wasn't easy for Joey to sing. He didn't have great stage presence or skills, and he never used the mic to talk about himself during his work. But he became the heart and soul of the Ramones, the band that changed the way American punk rock was done. During a time when controversy and image made stars, Joey Ramone stood out in a very different way. It's strange and quiet, but it's unbeatable. He was the voice of the unheard, the face of the outcast, and the symbol of a rebellious youth that wasn't trying to get famous but just to stay alive. From being a boy with mental illness who lived in the shadows to being the leader of a punk wave that broke all the rules, Joey Ramone had a unique journey. The biggest riddle of all is this: the more quiet he was, the longer he lived. So what made a weirdo a cultural icon? What made Joey Ramone a man who never wanted to be the center of attention, the star for a whole age, in his early years? The real name of Joey Ramone is Jeffrey Ross Hyman. He wasn't meant to be a star. No one who saw the skinny, quiet, hairy boy who avoided groups in Forest Hills, Queens, would have thought that he would one day become the face of a generation of rebels. However, that inconsistency is exactly what made a legend possible. The quiet New York neighborhood of Forest Hills, Queens, is where Joey was born on May 19, 1951. He grew up in a middle-class Jewish family that had many quiet problems. When he was only 7 years old, his parents got a divorce. No one could explain why, and it left him with a cold sadness that no words could fill. Freddie Lee and his younger brother Mickey Lee lived with their mother, Charlotte Hyman. Charlotte Hyman was a strong, independent woman who loved art and never tried to make her boys fit into a certain mold. She was the one who first showed Joey the Beatles and took the boys to the movies to expose them to art and culture. Still, not even she could help her son feel less alone as he felt it growing. From a very young age, Joey was dissimilar. He was very tall. By junior high, he was already over 6 feet, and skinny, like someone had pulled on his body from behind. He kept to himself and was quiet. People often saw him standing alone. What really made Joey's life hard was his battle with obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, which was seen as strange or even crazy at the time. There were times when he would check the door locked dozens of times. He couldn't leave the house without following a strict set of routines. There were days when Joey would stand at his front door and not move for more than an hour, unable to be sure that the door was really locked. Because of his illness, he was alone and made fun of, and people called him the kid with problems. But Joey didn't fight back. He just kept quiet. He hid himself in music. As a result, music became Joey's only safe place. He fell in love with Iggy Pop, The Who, Lou Reed, and David Bowie, who showed him that stage freaks could be great. Joey taught himself to play the drums by listening to the radio and copying BBC recordings, playing them over and over again like a healing routine. He later learned to play the guitar and slowly started to sing. It wasn't a smooth voice, but it was raw and real in a sick way. Joey didn't talk to other kids like other kids, his mother once said. While playing the guitar, I could picture him saying things that words could never say. There weren't many people he knew. Not many people dared to talk to the skinny boy who stared into space and hummed tunes to himself. When that happened, Joey didn't need anyone. All he needed was music and a vague sense that he was aiming for something bigger than being alone. Though Joey had a hard, lonely, and quiet childhood, it didn't break him. Like no other, it made a soul. And in a world where everyone wants to be normal, Joey Ramone would stand up and choose to be proudly and defiantly weird. One of the most famous punks was born in that darkness. A successful career. It never happened that the Ramones were a big hit band. Their albums didn't top the Billboard charts, but Joey Ramone's success was rooted in the very essence of punk. He went from a small stage at CBGB to a global impact on artists of all generations. You don't need to be accepted to become immortal. After releasing their debut album Ramones in 1976, the band, fronted by Joey, quickly became a sensation in New York's underground scene. The album didn't get much radio play, but it made a seismic impact. Stripped-down music, simple lyrics, songs barely over a minute long. Joey, His voice flat, repetitive, technically unrefined, stood at the center. Instead of trying to sound like a good singer, he sang exactly what he felt. And that honesty resonated deeply with millions of young people feeling isolated. The Ramones toured relentlessly. They brought punk rock from New York to Los Angeles, then to London, Tokyo, Buenos Aires. At every show, Joey was a symbol. Hair falling over his face, sunglasses nearly motionless on stage, but radiating an uncanny energy. Lost, yet impossible to look away from. Albums like Leave Home, Rocket to Russia, Road to Ruin, and especially End of the Century, 1980, produced by Phil Spector, reflected the band's evolving storytelling. But Joey's voice remained unchanged. Raw, unpolished, uncompromising. While other members came and went or drifted creatively, Joey held tight to the original spirit of the Ramones, steadfast, relentless, indifferent to trends. Over 2 decades, the Ramones released more than 20 studio and live albums, performed over 2,000 shows, most with Joey on stage, screaming out songs about alienation, frustration, rebellion, and the kind of loneliness no one could quite name. It's no coincidence that major bands like Green Day, Pearl Jam, Rancid, and The Strokes all cite Joey Ramone as a pioneer. Critics often tried to categorize the Ramones, but they always hit a wall. Joey defied classification. He wasn't a traditional frontman, no flamboyance, no charm offensive, no crowd manipulation. But it was precisely his stillness, his awkward honesty, and that looping voice, like he didn't want the moment to end, that made people believe him more than anyone else. In 1995, Joey's health began to decline due to lymphoma, but he kept performing, recording, and staying connected with his devoted fans. Even as his condition worsened, he never withdrew from music. A year later, the Ramones officially disbanded after more than 2 decades. And throughout it all, Joey had never once stepped away as lead singer. When he passed away in 2001, major outlets like the New York Times, Rolling Stone, BBC, and NPR all called him the soul of the Ramones, the man who brought punk rock to the world. In 2002, the Ramones were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Joey Ramone's name wasn't just engraved there. It was etched into American pop culture when a street in New York was renamed Joey Ramone Place. This wasn't success measured in sales or trophies. It was the triumph of an outsider who turned strangeness into a universal language, made the world listen in a way no one ever had before. Personal life: Joey Ramone was never one for the spotlight offstage. Throughout his career, he rarely shared details about his private life, was never involved in romantic scandals, never appeared on magazine covers with girlfriends, and certainly never promoted himself. But behind the long hair that hid his face and the ever-present sunglasses was a personal life marked by loneliness, complexity, and quiet wounds. Joey never married, had no children, and never publicly disclosed any long-term romantic relationships. Part of this stemmed from his deeply introverted nature and his severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, a condition that drove him to repeat irrational behaviors like checking locks dozens of times, obsessive cleaning, and excessive worry over even the smallest changes. This not only affected his work, but also made it difficult to maintain close personal relationships. The most serious romantic relationship Joey is believed to have had was with Linda Daniele, a woman from New York's underground art scene. But that love ended bitterly when Linda left Joey and began dating, then later married Johnny Ramone, the guitarist in the very same band. It was the most devastating emotional blow of Joey's life. Though he never publicly addressed it, those close to him knew he never forgave Johnny, even as the two continued performing together in the Ramones. That pain quietly seeped into his music. Many believe the song, "The KKK Took My Baby Away," was Joey's veiled jab at Johnny, whose political leanings were often conservative, even extreme, for stealing his girlfriend. Though Joey never confirmed this, his brother and other close friends have said it was a wound that never healed. Outside of love, Joey's personal life was largely solitary. He lived in an apartment in Manhattan, either with his mother or alone. He spent his time listening to music, writing songs, reading books, and grappling with his worsening illness. Despite his fame, Joey didn't surround himself with a large management team, didn't pursue a lavish lifestyle, and always maintained close ties with his family, especially his mother Charlotte and younger brother Mickey Lee. who later wrote the memoir, I Slept with Joey Ramone to tell his brother's story. Joey lived with contradictions, a performer adored by millions, yet unable to forge lasting connections in real life, a symbol of rebellion, yet fearful of even the smallest disruptions in his routine. The chaotic world of punk, Joey was a quietly tormented soul who didn't seek love to fill a void. He lived with that void as an inseparable part of himself, and perhaps that's what made him truly different. Joey Ramone wasn't an artist living for the public, but a real human being, wounded, strange, and never trying to hide it. Final years. Joey Ramone didn't leave the stage with fanfare. He gradually stepped back. He never disappeared. In his final years, though illness ravaged his body, he held on to the one thing no one could ever take: his artistic integrity and unwavering loyalty to punk. In 1995, after years of unexplained symptoms, Joey was diagnosed with lymphoma, a dangerous form of blood cancer. He didn't go public with the news, didn't speak to the media, and barely mentioned it to anyone outside a few close confidants. He continued living in his modest New York apartment, quietly undergoing treatment, still writing music, and spending time with his mother and younger brother. When the Ramones disbanded in 1996, it wasn't an ending, it was a quiet transition. Joey began working on solo material, collaborating with longtime friends like Daniel Ray. His final recordings carried a different tone, no longer the raw screams of the 70s, but something deeper, more haunting, as if he were bidding farewell to himself. Throughout his battle with cancer, he wrote music not as performance, but as healing, for his own soul, the one that had felt abandoned since childhood. In April 2001, Joey's health deteriorated. He was admitted to New York Presbyterian Hospital. In his final days, he kept in touch with his brother Mickey Lee, his mother, always by his side since boyhood, and a few close musician friends. He kept listening to music, not punk, but soft, soothing ballads. According to his family, he was listening to U2's In a Little While when he took his last breath, as if whispering to the world, "It's time to let go." Joey Ramone passed away on April 15, 2001, just over a month before his 50th birthday. His death wasn't loud, but it sent shockwaves through the music world. From devoted Ramones fans to newer generations of artists, like Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day and Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, everyone paid tribute with deep reverence. Because Joey wasn't just a founding figure of American punk rock, he was someone who rejected all artifice and lived truthfully right to the very end. Before his death, he completed his first solo album, Don't Worry About Me, released in 2002. It wasn't a grand farewell, but rather the honest voice of someone who had lived fully, hurt deeply, and now simply wanted to say, "I didn't give up." In a world where so many stars die from addiction, accidents, or scandal, Joey Ramone's death was quiet. And because of that, it resonated more deeply than any stage goodbye. No lights, no fireworks, just a man who lived to his own rhythm and left when the final note was played. Legacy and influence. Joey Ramone never won a Grammy, never topped the charts, and was never portrayed as a real star by mainstream media. But after his passing, the world began to realize, sometimes those who change history never need to stand in the spotlight. Throughout his career, Joey helped shape American punk rock from the ground up. Alongside the Ramones, he dismantled the outdated standards of classic rock, where musicians flaunted technical skill, performed with excess, and sought validation from critics. For Joey, music needed only 3 chords: a clear idea and raw emotion. Songs like Blitzkrieg Bop, I Wanna Be Sedated, Sheena is a Punk Rocker, Judy is a Punk. They weren't beautiful in the academic sense, but they reached the souls of the overlooked. The misfits, the anxious, the angry, the unyielding. Joey didn't have a conventionally remarkable voice, but like Bob Dylan or Lou Reed, it was precisely his imperfect voice that became iconic because it was real, eccentric, defiant, and fearless. He sang as if it were the only way to survive. And in a world increasingly obsessed with artificiality, that voice helped listeners feel they weren't alone. And Joey's influence extended far beyond the Ramones. Bands like Nirvana, Green Day, The Offspring, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Rancid, Bad Religion all cited the Ramones as inspiration and Joey as their artistic soul. The values he embodied, simplicity, honesty, rebellion, and refusal to compromise became the foundation for entire waves of alternative rock, garage rock revival, and post-punk that followed. Visually, Joey Ramone became a pop culture icon. Tall and thin, leather jacket, hair covering his face, dark sunglasses. That image has been immortalized in cartoons, vinyl figures, tattoos, even streetwear. He represented the beauty of being different, the courage to stand before the world and say, "I'm not like anyone else, and I don't need to be." In 2003, the city of New York officially renamed a stretch of East Village Joey Ramone Place, right near where the Ramones used to play at CBGB. The street sign was stolen so often by fans that the city had to install it higher than usual. A paradoxical tribute. The man, once seen as a weirdo, was now honored by the entire city. For those who understand punk, Joey Ramone's legacy doesn't live in halls of fame. It lives in bedrooms, in garages, in the hands of kids holding guitars they don't yet know how to play, but still believe they can write a song. Joey didn't just represent music. He represented the right to be yourself, the resilience of the outcasts, the voice of those who don't fit into this world but refuse to be swallowed by it. Joey Ramone wasn't the kind of artist shaped by studios or media campaigns. He didn't possess flashy stage skills, didn't live in a $1 million mansion, and wasn't celebrated worldwide during his lifetime. But just like the music he helped create, simple, raw, unpolished, Joey Ramone existed as an undeniable truth of modern culture. He was a lonely scream in a noisy but empty world, the soul of a band that never chased fame, yet changed the course of rock history. An outsider who gave voice to millions who couldn't speak for themselves. And through that unfiltered strangeness, Joey left behind something no award could ever match: absolute loyalty to his true self. Though he was never praised as an A-list celebrity, Joey Ramone's name still hangs on the bedroom walls of thousands of punk-loving youth. On a street sign in New York City. In every cover version, played by a younger generation. And in every moment when someone feeling lost, odd, out of place, finds a Ramones song and feels less alone. Joey Ramone left this world the way he lived, in silence, without spectacle, but with a sound that echoes forever, a voice that never won awards, yet can never be replaced, a man who never tried to be famous, yet became a legend.